Today, we need to talk about something pretty shocking. It's an investigation that's uncovered how thousands of North Koreans are being sent to Russia right now to work in conditions that are, frankly, modern-day slavery. And it's all a direct result of the war in Ukraine.
So to really get what's going on here, you have to hear it from someone who actually lived it. This is a quote from a man named Tae, a construction worker who miraculously managed to escape. And his words, well, they just capture the absolute hopelessness at the center of this whole story.
You might be asking yourself, why on earth would anyone sign up for this? Well, that's the thing. Back in North Korea, this isn't sold as a punishment. It's pitched as a golden ticket.
You see, getting a job overseas like this is a huge deal. It's seen as a one-in-a-million chance to escape just crushing poverty, maybe even earn enough to buy a home or start a little business. They only pick the most trusted men for these jobs, but there's a huge price right from the start. You have to leave your family behind.
But that dream, well, it completely shatters the moment they arrive in Russia. The life they were promised is a world away from the one they're actually forced to live. Let's just start with the numbers. Every single day, they are forced to work for 18 hours. They start at 6 in the morning, and they don't stop until 2 a.m. the next day. It's just relentless.
And days off? You want to guess how many they get? 2. They get 2 days of rest per year. The exhaustion isn't a bug. It's a feature of the system.
And what about safety equipment? For guys working on dangerous construction sites? Zero. Absolutely none. They're working on high-rise buildings, often in the dark, with nothing to protect them if they slip or fall.
And this brings us right back to Tae's experience. He said his hands were so paralyzed from the day before that he literally couldn't open them. He saw guys who were so exhausted they'd fall asleep standing up, and then they'd get beaten by the supervisors. It's a life lived, as another worker put it, right on the very edge of death.
And their life off the clock, if you can even call it that, is just as grim. They're crammed into these filthy, bug-infested shipping containers, or they're told to just sleep on the concrete floors of the buildings they're still constructing, with maybe a canvas sheet for a door. And they're never, ever alone. North Korean state security agents are watching every move they make. And if you get hurt, tough luck. One man fell 4 meters, shattered his face, and was just denied any real medical care.
So how is any of this possible? This isn't just a few bad bosses. No, this is a full-blown state-sponsored scheme, and it's a system that happens to benefit 2 very powerful authoritarian regimes. So here's the kicker. This whole operation is completely illegal. Back in 2019, the UN put sanctions in place specifically to stop this kind of thing, to cut off the flow of cash to the Kim regime. But Russia's found a sneaky way around it. They just issue thousands and thousands of student visas to these guys. And just look at how the numbers have exploded. As Russia's own workforce has been drained by the war in Ukraine, they become more and more dependent on these North Korean workers. We're talking about a 12-fold increase in arrivals in just the last year alone. It's staggering.
The exploitation becomes crystal clear when you look at the pay. The workers figure out pretty quickly that other foreign laborers on the same construction sites are working 1/3 of the hours but earning 5 times the money. Think about that. They're trapped doing triple the work for 1/5 of the pay.
So where does that tiny salary even go? Well, almost none of it actually goes to the worker. A mind-blowing 90% of their earnings are just confiscated by the North Korean government. They call them loyalty fees. The worker's tiny cut is just a number in a ledger, something they're promised they'll get if they make it back home.
So when you're faced with that kind of horrific reality, endless work, constant abuse, and stolen wages, it's not really a surprise that a few of these guys decide to risk absolutely everything for a shot at freedom.
So let's go back to Tae. Here's how he pulled it off. He used the tiny bit of money he had for cigarettes to secretly buy a smartphone. And on that phone, he started watching YouTube videos and learned the truth about what life and wages were like in South Korea. So one night, he stuffed blankets under his bedsheets to make it look like he was asleep, snuck out of the work site, and got into a taxi for an unbelievable journey, thousands of kilometers across Russia, to meet someone who could help him.
And, of course, because of escapes like Tae's, the North Korean regime is cracking down even harder now.
The few freedoms these workers had, like a rare group outing, they're all gone. Instead, there's more ideological training, more forced loyalty pledges. That prison without bars is just getting smaller and smaller.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. Because these individual stories of suffering and incredible bravery, they fit into a much larger and, honestly, a much more dangerous geopolitical picture.
At its heart, this is a disturbingly simple transaction. Russia is desperate for labor to keep its war economy going, and it gets a cheap, totally compliant workforce. In return, North Korea gets a desperately needed stream of hard currency that completely sidesteps international sanctions, money that goes directly to funding the Kim regime.
And make no mistake, this is not some temporary fix. Experts are warning that this system of forced labor is going to be the lasting legacy of the friendship between Putin and Kim Jong-un. The flow of these workers is expected to continue long after the fighting in Ukraine ever stops.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought. As these two leaders get closer and strengthen their alliance, this is the legacy they're building, a system of state-sponsored slavery. And it forces us to ask the question, who is truly paying the price for this friendship?